Politics Society.
Hi, I'm Aditi and I'm editorial team member for Incite.
And today we have Sara, who's running for the position of union chair. Hi Sara, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
How's the campaigning going so far?
Good, really well, yeah.
So to start off the questions, we wanted to ask about perhaps one of the most important roles that the union chair would hold, and that is setting the agenda for exec meetings and leading the conversation that union officers have. What would you bring to the agenda, and what's important for your agenda of next year?
Well, the agenda would usually start with what everyone else wants and what they bring to me, and then I can sort that out. And I think it depends on obviously my preference, but in relation to what the other students want.
Yeah.
And what I can bring is, it's mostly about organisation. So if I can get that organised and set it out a good amount of time before the meeting, then I think that would be a good way to get everyone understanding what is on the agenda.
Okay, sounds good. So the union chair also has to hold other sabbatical officers to account. How will you manage the other SABs?
Okay, so as one of my points in my manifesto is accountability.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for them to know that they should be following every single pledge that they've put onto their manifesto. Obviously, it's understandable that it might take time and it's not going to be probably a year gap that they can do their pledges in. How I would do that is I would set on one-to-one meetings with them, going through every single thing and having an update of what they're doing and how that's going to affect each student. And then it's good to understand what they're doing, but it's also really important to relay that back to the students.
So the union chair requires a lot of work, as you may know, but it is just a part-time position.
Yeah.
So what other activities and jobs will you be doing next year, and will you have time to fill this role?
Yeah, so currently I'm on placement. Next year I'll be back doing my final year.
Yeah.
And as in my second year I was already part of the community zone and I was vice president of Nutrition Society.
Yeah.
I feel like I can manage my time pretty well from experience, and I've managed to do it well so far. I think next year I will only be, well, hopefully union chair and have my degree.
Yeah.
So I think my time management will be good there. Yeah.
That's good. So it's the job of the union chair to settle any disputes over the union bylaws. This can be in the case of a bylaw being vague or inaccurate, but it can also be in the case where a bylaw is perceived differently by different people. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, the bylaws wouldn't allow a referendum on the NUS to be held during term time. Despite this, the union chair and exec decided to ignore it and held a referendum during term time anyway, which they felt was much more convenient. Will you interpret the bylaws rigidly and stick by the book, or will you apply it case by case and be more contextual about it?
Personally, I'd like to do it case by case. I understand that it is a part-time role and obviously I won't be able to do that individually, but for the main important things then I would want to go over it one by one. And the fact that it really depends on what the situation is and what that bylaw is and how far off they want to go to it. And if you look at the bylaws on the front few pages, it does say that these are just sort of like a guideline and they will be interpreted differently by each individual. So it really depends on the situation.
So moving on to the next sort of case scenario. So a union chair has to have courage and use their judgment wisely. We'd like to give you a scenario and you can tell us what you would do in that scenario.
Okay.
So a few years ago, a group of students needed funding to go to a protest in London. However, the union chair and exec decided not to give them the money. The next exec meeting, these students turned up en masse and protested the decision. The exec then performed a U-turn and gave them the funding they originally asked for. So in this situation, would you assert yourself and stick by your original decision, what you believe is right, or would you listen to your students and give them what they want?
Okay. I'd want to explain to them the reasons again why we went against it or for it, depending on, for example, in that situation, going against it.
Yeah.
I try and calm them down because obviously if they come in mass then they're going to want to take over the place.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that it's not just me individually there wanting to do this. I'm sure I'll have the support of all the different VPs and the zone members. So I just want to explain to them calmly, and then depending on if anything's changed or not, then maybe we would change the decision we made in the first place.
Okay, so we have another scenario for you.
Yeah.
A student last year wanted to create a new VP position, and they were mistakenly told that they could hold a referendum for it. The student got the required number of signatures to hold the referendum, but they couldn't actually hold it. Exec had to discuss this, and the union chair had to make a difficult decision whether to hold the referendum and the outcome would be meaningless, or if the new VP position was approved, or to tell a student that they couldn't hold the referendum in the first place, despite them originally being told otherwise. So in that situation, what would you have done?
So I would obviously first of all explain the reasons why we can't do this, and why we can't have another VP position depending on the new structure of the union. But in that case, if they still want to go ahead with it, then I would let that go ahead with it, but then I would make sure they know from the beginning that this probably isn't going to happen. And then I'd leave it up to them to decide whether they'd be happy to carry on with the referendum or not, but then it's up to them.
So you'd give the student the option instead?
Yes, because technically, yes, because I would be here for the students, and me being a student as well. Definitely. Obviously I'd have a voice in it as well, but it really depends on what they want. So if I just make a decision and it's completely against everyone else, there's not really much point you being here.
So you're also running for NUS delegate. What is your opinion on the NUS, and do you think it is an effective organisation?
I think with all organisations, there's stuff that you agree with and you don't. And it really depends on a general perspective what way you'd go with it. And personally, I think a lot of the stuff that they do and a lot of the campaigns they do run have been beneficial to a majority of students, which I think has been good. And obviously when we had the referendum to stay within the NUS, majority ruled us to stay in. So that is probably what everyone else would want as well.
So sort of relating to the NUS, so the NUS has decided to boycott the National Student Survey, which is sort of like a big discussion right now. Our own Students' Union is opposing the boycott, so they're for the NSS still. What's your sort of take on that? Do you support or oppose the boycott?
Are you asking me this as union chair, or are you asking me this as Sarah?
As union chair.
Yeah, as union chair. Okay, so I'd have to go with the majority, but obviously taking into account the minority and people that are against it. But obviously, at the end of the day, we're all students and we all want to have an amazing experience and be in the best facility organisations, but at the lowest possible cost and being affordable for students. And if this means a rise in student fees, then that's something we're going to have to relay to all the students and make sure everyone understands the outcome of this survey.
That's a really good answer.
So for our final question, your manifesto and some of your pledges are very similar to that of your opponent. So what do you think sets you apart from him or gives you an edge over your opponent?
That's a tough question. I wouldn't say that they're exactly the same, because I think we both have wonderful ideas, but my ones I feel are more specific to what I can do for each individual student, even though I would be a part-time officer. For example, having a union chair subscription email, which is, I would have all the agenda of the minutes and all the different exec meetings, and basically advertising it through that. And it wouldn't be a mass email, it would be an email where each student, would subscribe to it. So no one can really say they didn't want it because you sign up to it in the first place. And that way it'd be a direct way of interacting with the student and letting them know what the union is doing for them individually.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I think that's...
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here and talking to us. It gives really good questions. If you'd like to watch Sam's video, who's also going for union chair, there will be a link to that video in the description box. We also have video links to everyone who's going for the role of president as well.
Subscribe to StagTV and follow the Polsoc Society page on Facebook and the Incite page on Facebook to see our videos. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.